is a conceptual paper I present today, and this was done with Mohamed Saki. And yeah, I'm more than happy to give you maybe a little bit of information uh, for myself. So at the moment, I'm a visiting research fellow at Cambridge Service Alliance, enjoying my time here. And as a background, I have a background in business informatics and received my PhD in information systems about 3 years ago. When I'm not visiting here, I'm a postdoctoral researcher and project manager at two affiliations. One is in Switzerland in St. Gallen, University of St. Gallen, and one is in Germany, University of Kassel. And I have the pleasure to lead a small team of PhD students there in the group of Jan Marco Leimeister. Besides my research activities, I already have about 15 years of experience in practice from SAP and several startups. I was involved and founded them. And I had the opportunity, besides this visit, to visit other places as well, and had intense research collaborations with Queensland University of Technology in Australia, the Service Research Centre in Sweden, Tel Aviv University, and the High School of University of Maryland. My main research foci are clearly service research, especially service system design and management, nowadays, of course, also with artificial intelligence and corresponding business models, as well as digital work, for example, crowd work. And domains are varying. I did my PhD in the e-health domain, have a project in smart city, and do a lot of IT related projects as well. So I'm gonna start with some of the key takeaways I hope you take away at the end of my talk. One of the key takeaways today for me, and hopefully for you, is artificial intelligence, AI, services have great potential and can support human intelligence and the decision-making processes. Of course, I've got a very hands-on example for you as well. So this is one of the takeaways. Another one is that typically AI, is discussed widely at the moment, but typically AI services are not standalone, but they are typically part of overall service offerings and customer journeys. So it's typically a combination of artificial intelligence and agile human intelligence. We call everything which is in this kind of mixed mode hybrid intelligence. So that's one of the key takeaways as well. And as the surrounding environment is highly volatile in today's business environment, this cannot be realized with very rigid service structures here. So if you want to be prepared for these frequent kind of changes, we suggest in this conceptual paper a modular service structure. And I'm gonna go into detail what we mean with modular in a second. What we also gonna present today, and what I'm gonna present, is that we identified 5 different types of configurations if you consider customer journeys for AI services. And that's more like the imperative of the overall presentation. It's key to design this interplay of different types of services and to design the orchestration of services. After giving you this kind of overview, what I hope that your and our joint takeaways of this webinar are, I give you some background information about like the key concepts in this conceptual paper. So the first one is customer journeys. In this case, a customer's journey comprises all touch points of a company with this customer for a specific service, for example. And what is very important, and there I can highly recommend this article by Lemon and Verhoef from 2016, that it's a seamless experience of the customer journey, which is most important. And today there's so many channels which can be used, that this integration of these kind of different channels, that is really key to realize this smooth and seamless experience of a customer journey. And typically, what you distinguish in these customer journeys is three phases. So there's a pre-purchase phase, for example, where you create the awareness for a product or service, where you really where the customer considers to buy it. Then there's a purchase phase, where it's all about the provisioning of the service. How smooth can you really realize this service provisioning? And there's a post-purchase phase, so where everything related to maintenance or loyalty programs takes place. And this is only the current customer experience. Let's say for one service or for one product, typically you at least need to consider that this customer might have purchased other services already, might have like a long-lasting relationship with you. So this accounts for every new purchase moment. So that's the customer journeys background. In regards to artificial intelligence, I mean, it's probably clear for you that I wanted to just give you some facts and figures. A lot of enterprises are expected to use AI. At least within this year, 62% of enterprises are expected to use artificial intelligence. That's quite extreme and quite high, I consider, because just a few years ago, this number was much less. And the market growth is, considerably high. Was 2 years ago, that was $8 billion, and it's expected to be $47 billion in 2020. What I found quite interesting, that Forrester had like an overview of the top 10 AI technologies, and I listed the top 3 for the moment. In this case, this is like natural language generation, so that the artificial intelligence really creates, based on the knowledge it has already and the data it could gain, new language and new naturally sounding language. Then there's speech recognition. That's everything related. You probably have heard of this instant translation services Google wants to provide. That's everything about speech recognition. And for example, virtual agents. So think of customer care, where your first contact of customer support might not be a human being, but for example, a chatbot. Given this, I just choose one example. And please keep in mind that at all touch points of this customer journey, it's important to have like informed decisions, so the customer really feels welcome, feels cared about, and also to have empathic interactions. So if you consider like a real AI example, you can think of that there's real-time data, both of current and also of historic customer interactions you had with this specific customer, or maybe with customers of a same customer group. And then AI, artificial intelligence, enables you to improve this experience within the customer journey. And this can have different kinds of ways how this can happen. I just mentioned 2 for this example. For the one part, AI might suggest specific types of interactions and channels. So based on previous experiences, the AI might suggest that, okay, a chat agent is going to be involved, or a customer call is made also by a human being, maybe also by an AI agent, or for example, an email offer is provided, another email is sent. So that's a channel suggestion by artificial intelligence based on the interactions you had before, or your customer group had before. And then it might give recommendations regarding relevant content. So it would suggest, for example, a customer agent to mention different keywords. Have you thought of this kind of product? Would this not be like a very good, very positive sign if you could realize this kind of result, etc. So this is like the example you can think of. That might be, of course, much more advanced, having much more data points as well. And then, like as the last background information probably, I wanted to go a little bit more into detail what hybrid intelligence services are. So the one part is like human intelligence. That's everything you probably, like everyone knows already for services. Maybe you don't know. Like the very typical way of a patient visiting a doctor or any kind of services that is provided, which is just performed between two human beings or several human beings. And then there's artificial intelligence, more or less standalone. For example, like an RP-based thing where you just have an artificial intelligence learning about the language, etc. But the most important part we consider here, and this is marked in between, is like that you use artificial intelligence to combine it with human intelligence, and that you support the decision making of human intelligence. So our assumption is that it's about designing new hybrid, that's how we call it, hybrid intelligence services. And it's all about the interplay and orchestration of these services or these different two types of services. Giving that background information, we said in our conceptual paper that it's about the modular service structures that might be needed to realize this. And modular service structures in this case are related, or maybe in contrast, that's the better word, in contrast to many structures that are in place today that might be very rigid structures, where your flexibility is very limited because you've got a lot of legacy systems and the overall service provisioning cannot be done in a plug and play fashion. So what you try to do is you analyze your services, your whole service portfolio, and you're breaking these services down into different service modules. And so you could ask the question, or one might ask the question, okay, but how far do I like separate different parts of services? And you do that until you reach like these kind of specifics that all service modules have the function that they fulfill, a dedicated function, that like every module has a clear function, and you've got defined interfaces. It's exactly these defined interfaces which you need so you can have like a plug and play. So you need to know, okay, what's the input, what's the output. As soon as you arrive at this stage of modular service structures, then it's easy for you to plug and play, to kind of play around, to adapt service provisioning structures and service customer journeys for your customer so that it exactly fulfills the need of this specific customer, maybe even on demand. And as a typical result of modularization, I can mention at least three in this case. So typical benefits of modularization are you've got reuse of modules. That just is very good for you. If you have like a very good module, then you can reuse it in several kinds of services of your overall service portfolio. You've got this ease of reconfiguration, which I meant with plug and play characteristic. And of course, as soon as you can concentrate on some very specific modules, you have like a much higher speed of innovation because you can concentrate on these more strategic modules, and the rest might be the same. So you can definitely see, okay, where is my strategic or competitive advantage? Put a lot of effort in innovating this module, and make this module part of your value proposition and customer journey. So overall, you can arrive at this plug and play characteristic of service modules. That's the main part why we suggest modular service structures. Gives you the flexibility you need in times of change. Okay, so what we did now is that we could identify 5 different types of configurations of customer journeys. And what you see here now is that we've got a customer journey, just as an example. In this case, it has 8 touch points. So over the whole service life cycle, you would have, in this case, 8 touch points where you can get in contact and interaction with your customer as the service provider. And I use these kind of puzzle pieces because they reflect these nicely defined interfaces modules have quite nicely. So in this case, in this first configuration type, if you read on the right, customer journeys that are fully comprised of human intelligence service modules. So for this case, there would be different ways of the customer journey, but all parts of this customer journey would have touch points which are human intelligence. Another, in this case again, another extreme version of this is the second archetype, which is fully comprised of the artificial intelligence service modules. And as you might consider, of course, you've got archetypes 3 and 4, where on the one hand you start with AI services, follow up with the HI services, and the other way around. And maybe a fifth one, where the customer journey is really characterized by several changes between these different modules. And our assumption is that this is very often the case. So if you have like flexible service configurations, of course, you would try to think of, okay, which kind of AI applications can help you in your customer interactions with supporting also the human decision-making processes, and you would build them in. But still, you might have a lot of human intelligence interactions. So that's exactly the way a typical AI service might be structured. And it's not only AI, but as mentioned before, it might be more like this kind of hybrid intelligence service. In regards to the research which has already been done and which can be used to inform decisions in this regard, you can definitely say that more or less only for the very first archetype, there's an existing body of knowledge for customer journeys, for service experience. This existing body of knowledge is quite huge. For decades, there has been research on service experience, on customer journeys. That's really massive, and it's very important. But still, it tells us not so much about how you can really deal with this new emerging kind of artificial intelligence and also the mixture hybrid services. Knowledge gaps which we find most interesting in regards to research and practice is, okay, what are AI specific considerations if you think of the customer journey design? What is probably most relevant if you really want to have still the customer in focus? So there's so many principles you are aware of if you think of customer journeys in these traditional human intelligence services, but how is this changed and how should you design this if AI comes into play as well? And then, for example, another knowledge gap is, how is this interface, or how is the design of these interfaces between these different types of services, how should that be designed, managed, etc. As the title suggests, we also have a look at emerging business models. So the one part is, okay, how can you have a look on these new services, on this orchestration and interplay of different types of services, but then it becomes clear very soon that this might have an effect on your business model as well. So these are just the two main facts which I tried to elaborate on in the presentation so far. So these modular service structures, if in place, allow for flexible reconfiguration of services and customer journeys. Flexible in this regard also maybe live and real time. So that's the charm of this. And also hybrid intelligence, comprising human and artificial intelligence. This can really significantly increase efficiency of service provision. Why? Because not for all kind of services where automation can take place, you could try to install this artificial intelligence, and it's not only automated and done without kind of inefficiencies of human intelligence, but it's still also like it's learning, it's adding to the artificial intelligence knowledge base. So based on this, business models can be tailored to the customer's needs and preferences, also to, of course, depending on the willingness to pay for different characteristics of these new service models or business models. For example, if customers really want to use the services during peak times, that might be a differentiating factor. To have like 24/7 availability and support. Here you really have to distinguish between services that are already, for example, completely automated and IT based at least, um, or only human based, and the ones which are then facilitated by AI. And also, yeah, if these business models, or you can adjust these business models in terms of interactions, support by human beings. Sometimes you might have customers who really, really want to have their interactions and support by human beings for whatever reasons. But this might be also a differentiating factor for prices, for business models, for different service and quality levels as well. So this is the concept and what emerges also in regards to business models. And that we had like a very close look, okay, what kind of future research might emerge out of this, and which kind of questions for future research might emerge. So there's 6 we have identified so far. Of course, there might be more, but I'm happy to go through, and might be interested what you think as well. So one of the first is, how can interfaces be defined that foster exactly this mentioned and described plug and play characteristic of modular service structures? And then is there a systematic method, and how does a systematic method look like that guides service providers through the flexible configuration of service and customer journeys? So this is really the question: how systematic can the design of these kind of this change can be? Is there any design principles for that? That just guides and suggests guides the service providers. Then in this case, what does real-time data play? I think this is a very important question, because that can change a lot if you really are aware, and if you have like your systems integrated, so you know not only what the customer did in the past, but what is done, what is his aim, what is his needs, real time. And then how can, and maybe also should, customer self-services and of course live data again of these customer interactions and experiences be integrated in customer journeys. Think of maybe self-adaptable customer journeys. So depending on the customer and how they use your service so far, and maybe how they search for really realizing the service with you, how this might adapt the customer journey automatically. Then this is like more like a broader question, which might apply to many different areas of application. Is, if you think of these hybrid intelligence services, so you really combine something where you use artificial intelligence to enable the human intelligence as well, what's a good balance? How much AI, how much human intelligence? And then, of course, it might be very interesting, and we're very keen to do that as well in the next, as for next steps, to have case studies where we really have a closer look how to design and examine these customer journeys for hybrid intelligence services. Again, I would like to close with the key takeaways. So I hope that these are exactly your key takeaways. So artificial intelligence have great potential, and they support human intelligence and decision-making processes. They are typically not standalone, which is often suggested in other literature, but part of overall service offering. So you have to keep in mind, okay, how can it really contribute to the human intelligence and service offering you can provide? That's the keyword is hybrid intelligence. And that typically existing structures, if they're not modular yet, but rigid, are not ready to really let you react adequately to the speed and readiness for change that is asked for so far, but modular service structures are key. Then I presented these 5 configurations of AI customer journeys: only human intelligence, only AI, and mixtures with frequent or not change of these. And again, the imperative: design the interplay and orchestration of services, and you're very good in creating better customer journeys and service experience. And yeah, this was the end of the webinar. I was happy to present this to you. Looking forward to any questions.